General Wolters, I'm becoming increasingly concerned about what appears to be intel community failures over the past year. We were told that Afghanistan nationals would hold for at least 6 months, and we were told that Ukraine would probably fall in only a few days. I'm not sure we gamed a scenario. The intel community did a great job in predicting the invasion, the amount of troops, the number of tanks. But here we are on day 34 or 35, and I don't think it was gamed beyond the initial 2 to 3 days. In Congress, we rely on these assessments to allocate resources and weapon systems. How concerned are you about what appears to be intel failures, and what do we do to correct those moving forward with looming threats such as China, Taiwan?
Congressman, just to be fair, and I know you know this as a commander, that the world of a 21st century intel officer is very difficult. I often ask our intel professionals, what is so-and-so thinking? And as we all know, a threat is defined as capability and intent, and part of that intent is what one human being is thinking. And given the structure of how Russia operates, it's very difficult to determine where President Putin's head was the entire time. But I think what we owe each other is, once we get the facts about how this unfolded and what was said and what was accomplished, we need to go back and take a look at our soft areas and make sure we fix those. And I agree with you. We've had some tremendous work conducted by the intelligence community. This one has been baffling as a result of Russia's challenges, and the spirit of the Ukrainian citizens and their contributions were probably areas that we need to examine one more time to make sure that we're aware of their contributions to the outcome of a campaign.
Yeah, and I'm grateful the way NATO has stepped up and in many ways led after this conflict transpired. Just 3-4 years ago, President Trump was accused of trying to destroy NATO by asking them to meet their GDP assessments. He seemed to be pretty prophetic, and now in the face of the current conflict and threat, these countries are stepping up. You mentioned Germany. It's good to see them do that after essentially free riding the U.S. security guarantees for more than a decade and cozying up to Russia economically. How do we prevent a backslide in the event that this turns out the way we want, and how do we keep our NATO allies on board?
Better communication from senior military leaders like myself to the North Atlantic Council, to go back over and over again and describe to them what their contributions when it comes to hardware and software and people are doing with respect to our ability to better defend our NATO turf. And the more we do it, the more we maintain the positive campaign momentum in this area, and the more we figure out how all this contributes to keeping the citizens more safe. It'll keep the countries interested, and their level of involvement will continue to increase.
Okay. I've been disappointed in the president's almost schizophrenic messaging before and during this conflict. Initially, sanctions were the deterrence, and now we've learned that sanctions were never meant to deter. He had mentioned here recently that we would respond in kind to a chemical weapons attack, and that the mention of sending MiGs has been brought up several times today. But it apparently was too provocative, but apparently bringing up a regime change was not too provocative. So how is this messaging from the President and the White House affecting your ability to conduct operations on the ground, and what effect is it having on relationship with our allies?
Congressman, I'll just tell you that the alliance unity in NATO is as powerful as I've ever seen it. And my suspicion is that trend is going to continue. So in that arena, no effect.
Okay. And I had one more thing that maybe we can talk about in the classified setting, but I'm pleased to hear of your support for the Sea-launched cruise missile. And I guess I would just ask, if Russia did decide to use nuclear weapons, is it your assessment that they would most likely use the low-yield variety? And what are the limits of fallout and damage from that?
I'd prefer to address that in a separate venue, but what I can tell you is, as a military commander, I have to be prepared for Russia to exercise all options, and that's just one of them.
Okay. We'll look forward to further discussion. Thank you both.